Hello everyone, Matt here from PCGamesN and I'm joined by Rich.
Hello.
And we are talking about Destiny 2 once again. And we have a little bit of a focus today, which is the Arcstrider class. It's a hunter subclass. We're going to do a little sort of like breakdown of its skills and abilities. And we're also going to compare it to the Bladedancer, which appears to be the class that is essentially replacing.
Yep.
So obviously bits and bobs for if you're new to Destiny 2, then focus on the Arcstrider sort of stuff, but anybody that has played a Destiny game before, we're going to be looking at sort of like how it stacks up against things that have come before. So we'll start with kind of what is the Arcstrider, Rich? It's a hunter subclass, so it fits into that mold, but what's special about it?
It seems like I'm thinking of it as Bladedancer perfected. It sort of delivers on a similar sort of fantasy, which is an elegant, sort of aggressive, agile, moving around sort of power fantasy, I guess. It uses the arc element, which is sort of analogous to lightning, really. There's one different subclass for each element. And when I say Bladedancer perfected, there were some problems with the Bladedancer class in the original Destiny. And I think we'll start by talking about the super, right? So the Bladedancer super had you sort of jumping around with electrically or arc charged knives. The Arcstrider has you jumping around with an arc charged staff. And the way this differs from the Bladedancer is it seems like you're more in control of your direction when you're using the arc staff, and it seems as though there's less of an issue with hit registration. So with Bladedancer, you were kind of mashing the attack button and hoping that the lock-on system would sort of suck you into an enemy, and then you were also stopped short because you'd sort of knife him, and you'd be kind of vulnerable as you just sort of stayed in the air for a little bit before sort of moving on to your next victim. It looks like with the arc staff you'll be able to flow a little bit better. So we've seen in the B-roll that you're not sort of stuck short in one place. And we've seen in the B-roll that you can sort of move directions, like you can jump backwards, you can jump forwards, you can jump from side to side as you attack, and you sort of flow through enemies rather than being sort of brought up short. And that mobility is important because, as we've seen with the roaming supers in Destiny 2 so far, it looks as though the damage reduction while you're in super is a lot less than it was first time round, so you are a little bit more vulnerable to pure damage. So that mobility and that's going to be helpful. It also looks like there's definitely going to be a slam attack while you're in arc staff.
It seems like you can sort of like jump with it and sort of spin and come down, and almost a bit like Fists of Havoc, which is the Sentinels kind of super.
The Strikers
super. Yeah, sorry, the Sentinels go with the Captain America shield, isn't it? Yeah. So you've not seen too much of him yet.
No, I think the assumption is that we saw the Dawnblade at the reveal event. We've seen the Arcstrider at E3. I'm guessing Sentinel will be revealed later, maybe at Gamescom. But returning to the point. The Arcstrider does seem to have a ground slam, and one worthy note to make on this is that hopefully this makes it a lot better in PvE than the Bladedancer was. Bladedancer was basically useless in PvE. You had enough supercharge in your super to make 4 or 5 attacks at most, and so that's 4 or 5 mobs killed over the course of a long super, during which you were quite vulnerable. So that's not ideal. Whereas doing one ground slam attack, depending on the radius and the AoE, we can probably assume that the Arcstrider will be able to clear up mobs with that attack quite nicely. And if you get into trouble against ordinary Guardians in PvP, then that's another option as well. It also looks like there's one bit in the B-roll where the Arcstrider clears up 2 Guardians at the end of a corridor. I wonder if that's the ground slam attack or whether that's an equivalent attack to the Bladedancer's Razor's Edge attack, which was a perk you could pick on Bladedancer to give the super attack a little bit more range. But it's nice to see those options coming in. It looks like there's a little bit more flexibility in the Arcstrider this time around, and you can also see the super gauge ticking down quite slowly in the B-roll, and it's not massively accelerated by making an actual attack. So it looks like the super will last a lot longer as well. So a lot of changes there, which I think fix a lot of problems that Bladedancer had.
So the super is kind of like the massive attack that kind of characterizes a class, but obviously there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
And like if we now sort of explore through the kind of skill tree, we know that there are a set of grenades, which I believe are actually the same grenade systems that we use for the Bladedancer.
Yeah.
So if we go through that, that's a skip grenade, which splits on impacts, so that's multiple, like a cluster.
Yeah.
So grenade, there's a flux grenade, which is an explosive that I believe deals more damage when it's actually attached to an enemy, so it's like a sticky grenade.
It sticks to an enemy.
And the arc bolt grenade, which is stabs in the ground, sprays out kind of like bolts of electricity.
Yeah, so the arc bolt grenade, when it lands, it sort of throws out a detection radius, and any enemies caught in that radius get a bolt. And it'll be interesting to see how these ones are balanced in Destiny 2 this time around, because depending on, like, one of them was the clear preference at certain points during the original Destiny's life cycle. For a while, everyone only used arc bolts. Right now, it skips. And there's an exotic armor piece that you can wear which enhances the skip grenade even further, making the little cluster bombs within the skip grenade track even more aggressively. And, like, you know, in PvP especially, there's just no other choice than a skip grenade now if you're playing Bladedancer. So let's hope that's evened out a little bit more correctly in Destiny 2. One other note to make is that the flux grenades, the sticky grenades in general this time around, look a little bit weaker.
Right, okay.
So in Destiny 1, all sticky grenades across all classes were almost all one-shot kills. I think the magnetic grenade in the Defender subclass, it stuck, but it exploded twice, and you needed both of those explosions to hit before it actually killed. But it was still lethal when both those explosions went off, as was every other sticky grenade. This time round, it looks like sticky grenades aren't insta-kills. They'll just like take off sort of 80-90% of your health and shields. Which I think is a sensible change, because, you know, if you could successfully stick an enemy in Destiny 1, then that was a guaranteed kill, and it was a little bit skillless.
Absolutely. Right, so then moving on, they've got the class abilities and jumps they're shared across all Hunter subclasses. So there's kind of no difference here if you've seen any of our previous coverage of, or anybody else's coverage of, the Gunslinger. You'll already know that there's Marksman's Dodge, which is it automatically reloads your weapon when you dodge. You can have Gambler's Dodge, which will generate some melee energy for you. And there's the high jump, triple jump, and strafe jump that we have all seen before. Yeah,
worth noting that with the jumps, blink has been removed from the. So this is the Arc Hunter. The Arc Hunter, the Bladedancer, first time around had the blink dodge ability. That's gone. Arcstriders won't be able to blink.
And then moving on to the slightly more kind of interesting elements of the class is the two kind of passive trees. You've got Way of the Warrior and Way of the Wind. They're two very different kind of passive classes. So we'll focus on Way of the Wind first, which is there's Disorientating Blow, which is striking an enemy with a melee attack and it disorientates the target. There's if you kill a target with that, your Disorientating Blow instantly recharges. Lightning Reflexes is taking less damage when the Arc Staff is active, which obviously will promote sort of like not actually dying midway through a super, which would be lovely. Battle Meditation, which is when you're critically wounded, your melee and grenade skills recharge faster. That certainly sounds a useful thing to have in your arsenal. Focus Breathing reduces your dodge cooldown and increases your sprint speed.
So that's clearly, the Way of the Wind is clearly focused on movement there.
Yes, absolutely. Way of the Warrior, I think, is the slightly more kind of interesting one because you include Combat Flow, which has melee kills will recharge your dodge skill. Deadly Reach, which a dodge will temporarily increase your melee range. Lethal Current means that your Arc Staff, when you use it, will attack twice after you dodge. And Shocking Blow is when you strike an enemy with your melee, it will emit a deadly bolt of lightning from your fist. Now, the thing that I think is really interesting about Way of the Warrior is the way that it kind of links into your super. So when you engage the Arc Staff, essentially, if you use Gambler's Dodge, which recharges your melee, this means that then Way of the Warrior's Combat Flow system means that when you land a melee attack, that recharges your dodge, so you can end up having this loop.
They feed off of each other. I think that's really interesting. It's also worth noting that when we've seen Gambler's Dodge in previous gameplay, it's got quite a lengthy sort of activation radius. So there's footage I've seen of a guy who dodges, and a Cabal Centurion is probably a good 5 meters away, and it still triggers. And not only that, but it looks like it triggers a lot, right? It recharges your melee attack substantially. I think that's probably sort of 70-80% melee energy, which he regains. So, you know, that's a potentially fairly strong synergy there if you like being in close. Maybe pair that with a shotgun or something.
Yeah. So that's the Arcstrider. Certainly one of the things that I think I'm kind of most interested in, after having playing a Titan, which is a very different kind of role. This idea of a big sort of free-flowing, sort of like heavy sort of damage. That loop I think I find really interesting. So it's certainly the class I think I'm most looking forward to. Rich, not for you?
Not really my thing.
Which one would you say you're looking into?
Well, I mained a Warlock first time round. I mained a Warlock in the original Destiny, and then I mained a Titan for the second year. I think I want to see the Sentinel. I'm really intrigued by the Sentinel. If that's not interesting, then the Dawnblade. I'll go Warlock again. But.
So the good news is that all three of these new subclasses will be playable in Destiny's beta, which we on PC will be getting in late August. So if you're interested in the Arcstrider or any of these kind of like subclasses that you've heard us talking about, that will be the time to get your hands on with them and see if Destiny is for you if you've not played on PC before. Until then, please do like and subscribe to this video and the channel. We've got plenty more Destiny 2 coverage coming up as we approach the October 24th release date, which is a little bit later than the consoles, but still not actually that far out. So until next time, good luck, have fun.
Take care.